All right. Well, welcome everybody. We're having some slight technical difficulties where I've got my friend Bob here in the corner of your screen. How you doing there, Bob?
Doing well.
Yeah.
Doing well. A little bit, but we're getting there.
Okay. Good. So I hope you guys enjoyed that webinar. Now the real work starts in answering your questions. We're trying to get Bob set up so that he's beside me rather than right here. But here's what I'm going to ask of everyone watching right now. My rule for myself when I attend a webinar live with a presenter or two is I always ask a question. Why not? It kind of connects you with the presenters. It answers something that you need answered, and just makes things a little more lively. Secondly, there are no silly questions, and I realize that some of the topics and concepts we talked about aren't intimately familiar to all of you. So that's why we have the Q&A period. We can drill in, and let me tell you, if you have a question about something that you're not sure whether you should ask or not, I promise you someone else listening has that question. And it's just the person with the most courage that asks. So I really love for you guys to bury us with questions. And then, you listen to us, and that's a monologue. Well, this is a dialogue. So as we're going through this, I want you guys to, build in the chat. If you've got experience in an area, you want to share your experience, you want to challenge us, we're here for all of that. Easy questions should be directed at me, the tough ones at Bob, and that's how we're going to play this. You got anything to say off the top there, Bob, who's coming to us through an iPad?
Sorry about that, Sean. I having a microphone on the microphone. I apologize. What did you say?
We're just opening
Bob,
up.
Give us a word.
Any opening comments from you?
Well, I just think, planning and being ready for the next 12 months is so critical for our business. It's so critical for our survival, for us to make a profit, for, us to go from where we've been in with uncertainty to, an area of certainty in our life. And I just think a lot of the topics we talked about are so important for understanding how you get from the midst of a COVID pandemic to success in your restaurant.
Yeah. Okay, great. So the questions are starting to come in. Let me just say off the top here, Bob and I spend every day talking to operators around the country and around the world. And I've yet to speak to an operations team that doesn't need to make changes and repack their toolkit and just upgrade their operating system. So if you're feeling that way, you're in good company. If you were in the pre-COVID environment and you were making 30, 40% net profits and everything was great, maybe you don't need to change. But most businesses weren't crushing it pre-COVID. So post requires, once you drop that revenue down, you've got a new set of problems, and that requires a new approach to business. Having said that, I firmly believe that many businesses are going to have an incredible year this year, right? Once you do adapt to it, and we're getting capacity back up and we're starting to move forward, the fact that so many of you have been able to stay alive during this time has already proven to me that you've developed some new skills. And what we talked about today in the webinar was just an extension of that. And we want to go deeper with you guys now. So we'll start to take your questions. So please put them up in the window there. Is this the first one up there?
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm terrible at reading the written word. So once Bob's in a better position, I'll get him to read this, but I'll kick it off for now. So what does the constant change and uncertainty of this year mean for the future of our industry? Will it lead to innovation in business models of bars or return to the old ways? So I'll kick off here first. As I just said, I just don't know many operators that, had an operating system in place that's sufficient for our current conditions. So I don't think that people will return to the old ways, even if the market does, I think you'd be foolish, not to employ everything new that you've learned, right? If you were operating a business that made 5% net profit or less, you worked way more than 40 hours, and your business didn't have a great deal of value to begin with, I'd abandon all that pretty quickly, right? So I get focused on how does my business make between 15 and 18%? How do I put myself and my leadership team in a position to be able to work hard while we're here and also have a good life at home and at their community? And then thirdly, to put systems in place that allow you to constantly evolve your business so that it has a deep value when you're ready to part company with it. Any other thoughts on that, Bob?
I think you got that, Sean.
Okay. All right, awesome. Well, number 2, what's the best way to research industry benchmarks for operators who wish to do this for themselves? So I know Bob's got some thoughts on this. I'll just say off the top that it's very hard to, industry benchmarks, like, what does that even mean, right? Like when you're benchmarking, the essence of it means that you're comparing like with like. So, a lot of businesses, you could talk about even something as simple and you think as common as net profit. So what should a full service restaurant that has 200 seats that, has this sort of product, what sort of net profit should they be expecting? The calculation on net profit, you could have 3 different operators and have 3 different calculations in that. For example, some are looking at all of your current costs that are going into that. That's operator 1. Operator 2 could say, well, all of that minus my establishment costs, right? I put X into it and I had this sort of loan and I'm paying that down over time. Business number 3 could have all of that and they're purchasing the building at the same time. So they're making those payments. So, without a third party who's really in a position of confirming this data and making sure that you're actually comparing, a common general ledger with a common formula for evaluation of any specific metric, it's really difficult. And that's really what Bob does, right? All he does is deal with bars and restaurants and puts those into unique categories. I'm not saying it's the only way, but I'm telling you, 20 years of being a consultant, and all I want to do is get my hands on some really good data, and it's tough to do unless you have an intimate relationship with those accounts and you're able to understand the formula to which they're coming up with their calculations.
Yeah, and Sean, like you said, benchmarking is very tough, right? One, where do you find all the data? And 2, what segment of the industry are you in? And are you collecting data for just that segment? So really, benchmarking just takes a lot of effort. It requires a lot of data to be reviewed, and then taking that data and really putting it into terms of your industry or your part of the industry. And then secondly is, taking your menu if you're doing benchmarking on food costs, beer, wine, liquor, and really doing your homework on that. And that's what we do is say, all right, well, if you're a steakhouse, then, comparing your data to this, other steakhouses throughout the country, right? And saying, well, this is what the average, and that's really what we have to do. So there is no really industry benchmark. You really have to identify that through a lot of just answering questions about your own operations.
Right. Good. Well, next question here. This sounds like one of my friends set me up. What do I think of the Bar Rescue Show? What do I think of that? You know what? It'd be easy for me to criticize. I think it's good entertainment for those that like, watching a car accident on the side of the road. I have never personally seen a business turned around by shouting at adults and shaming people and throwing things and so forth. It just doesn't work. It makes good TV. If you honestly want to know how you turn a business around, you have to have a very thoughtful plan. You have to have a willing leadership team that's going to take that business forward. You have to be willing to swap out talent. for the right people sometimes in the right places. And you've got to be patient, and you've got to nurture that business and drive it forward. I've only seen a couple episodes of the show, and I had a hard time watching it. It's not really my sort of TV. They're trying to get Bob live here, so we're not going to find out what Bob thinks. But please keep your questions coming if you've got them. Let's see here. There we go. I think we're about to bring Bob, and you'll get to see how good he looks. He's got his hair done, and he's feeling real good about things. So a question that I got a bunch of direct messages and texts while the webinar was playing. Oh, there he is. Look at this guy. Good. I like the feedback, and you're doing great, Bob. We're almost done, but we're. I need a drink. We're just bringing him in.
All right, we're good. A little technical difficulties, but we're there.
Oh, you look good.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a jail cell.
Yeah, where are you? Is it an undisclosed location? So, Bob, one of the questions I got earlier today was, a fellow running, I think they got 5 or 6 stores, and he said, with all the uncertainty and all the changes that they're facing right now, like, is this a good time to be installing new mission critical systems? And my response was absolutely. Like if your boat's sinking, is it a good time to work on your motor? Yeah, if that's going to stop the boat from sinking, or is it a good time to work on putting a patch on your boat? It's not ideal, but it's all you got. Mm-hmm. And some of the things that that we've been talking about, I think it's important to really look at what you can do in your business to improve something that's already there, and then sometimes you have to swap something out. And that's why in my own business, that's why outsourcing is so important, right? Like I want to spend my time and have my team spend their time, as much of that time as possible doing our art, right? What we were good at, what we're here for. And the fact is, a lot of people get hives from trying to produce spreadsheets and predict the future and really reconcile the past, which can be difficult. So when it comes to making changes kind of midstream, Bob, what are your thoughts on that?
Sean, I think every business in our industry is changing their model right now and making lots of changes. And I can tell you, we have clients all over the country who have made the change and have seen immediate results, right? I mean, you have to change right now, because in the best economy we've had in many decades, many businesses weren't making money. And here we are, we've moved to probably one of the worst economies we're going to be facing for the next 6 months, potentially, if COVID spikes go up. You got to be watching everything. You got to be planning. You got to know what your cash flow forecasts are and know what your break even is, right? I mean, that is so critical all the time, but especially right now.
Yeah. And I really think that, for a lot of people that are under this pressure, and every operation is at the moment, it has a lot to do with where you decide you want to wind up after all of this, right? Like you think about a sports team that decides that, hey, we want to do better than 500. We want to break even, right? Like no A players want to work for that team. It's really tough to get motivated at work. But if you have a team that says, well, we want to set out to win the Super Bowl or the World Series or whatever sport you follow, that's a very different attitude people come to work with every day. And I was watching that documentary on the Bulls and Michael Jordan, and like Phil Jackson said to them, like, let's be legends, right? Let's be the best team of all time. And that, again, brings with it a very different attitude. And then nobody asks the question, is it now the right time to make changes to our financial system? Because the answer is hell yeah. Right? Let's put the right system in that's going to drive this business towards a bigger future. And it's the same with every single business decision you're looking at. It's saying, if we don't have the right system in place or the right people in place, let's make the change so that we can give ourselves the best chance to absolutely crush it and not just stay alive.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about making this change now is it's very little effort for the restaurant owner. The system works so flawlessly and it's so easy to implement. It's far harder to implement a new menu within your restaurant than a new financial standard, right? Because there's consulting firms that will do that for you, right? And so you bring in an expert and that spearheads that process for you, and it's very low drag on the operator, gets them off of that, or their wife or their mom or whoever's doing the finances, and really allows them to really focus on their craft, right? Whatever that is.
Yeah. All right. Next question, Bob. It's pretty clear we should not expect any government support or industry specific relief. As my cash runs out, where should I look for capital? This could be someone asking you directly for a loan, for all I know, but just answer it however you'd like.
Well, capital is very difficult, right? I mean, in this market, I think the government has done a good job. I don't know what state that person is in, but there's a lot of state grants out there for the restaurant industry. I would contact your restaurant association of your state, your lobbying, who they use, the lobbyists, right? And you should be lobbying your government, local officials, for assistance, right? We have that throughout the country, and the restaurant associations that have done that well have really collected millions upon millions of dollars for the restaurant industry. For instance, the state of Delaware just released over $100 million of grant money to restaurants alone, only. A local Harford County in Maryland did 15 million for restaurants only in one little county. So there's money out there. You got to tap into it, and you got to really use the bigger associations throughout your state to get that money rolling. Other than that, I mean, there are the SBA loans. A lot of those are undocumented, unbacked loans. If you haven't applied for those, you should. They're very easy. They approve them in 3 to 5 business days, and you normally don't have to personally guarantee them.
Yeah. So here's what I'd say. When you're looking for money in a very murky environment, I suggest that 2 or 3 different people are looking, right? And I don't mean spend all your time on it. I mean dedicate some time, because different people are going to talk to different people and find different solutions. So you got one common spreadsheet you're dumping information in, but you're calling, I would call no less than 30 other operators and say, hey, what are you doing? Have you heard anything? And what's been successful for you? Get someone on the phone with the government, as Bob says, like beat every bush and put it in that sheet. And then I'd set that aside and let those folks work on that. And I'd remember that I'm a retailer and I retail, right? I would think of 10 ways to drive revenue in my business, right? I know some people are crushing it with takeout. I'd say, how do I 2X that? Some people are doing some online things and bringing in some revenue that way. How do I 5X that? In the store, when you got people in front of you, how do I get the spend per head up 8 or 10%? Right? These are the questions that I'm asking my team, and we're setting goals and targets, and then we're chasing after those each and every week, because, I wouldn't be sitting around waiting for the government to bail us out, because I think they're just about to abandon us and leave us to fend for ourselves. And we got to start fending for ourselves now. And I'm telling you, the extra $200 and $400 and $800 that you drive, all that's really going to add up and become meaningful dollars as you're paying bills over the course of the next 6 months. The fall is promised to be pretty difficult. Mm-hmm. Next question. Is there one common financial mistake that you see with most of your clients when you start working with them? Bob?
Well, I would say not common, but it's a huge spectrum, right? I mean, we have clients that start with us who show up with a shoebox full of paperwork, right? Like no accounting system, right? We have some people who are on, old accounting systems or no one's really spearheading it, to people that are very organized and just need more guidance and consulting in their business when it comes to benchmarking, targeting, budgeting, and forecasting, things like that. But the one thing I can say is most of them know they need help, right? Most people at some point in their journey in business, especially this tough business we're in, is they get to a point where their back is up against the wall and the cards are about to fold. And that's not where you want to enter, right? Like that's not where you want to ask for guidance and a plan. You should ask for, some of our clients are some of the best run organizations in the country, right? And they know they need guidance and insight because they live in the trenches every day. It's hard to see the valley when you live inside the trench, right? And so I think what's most common is they get to a critical point in their business where it's either, how do I survive or I'm closing before they really seek help. And that's not the time, right? Every organization, no matter what its health condition is, both operationally, team, finance, any of that, can use guidance.
Yeah. So three quick things on this. Firstly, you got to know what you need to be successful right now, right? It's like you run a business in a certain way. I've talked to tons of operators that are 15 years experience, 20, 25 years experience. And they're like, but I don't know what I need right now, right? This is a very different scenario. We will send you guys, we've got a whole package that's been put together on all the sample reports that we need. We think the most critical ones that you could sit down and decide, hey, have we got these reports in this state coming to us in the right time frame, right? If you don't have the basics and the vitals and your budgets and your targets and everything for this month and this week, then you probably don't have the right stuff in place. That said, the next thing you've got to do is decide if you are going to switch over, use Bob's team. It could be overwhelming, right? There's a lot of reports, and I'm telling you, you've got to do the right things at the right time. You got to make sure that you don't totally overwhelm your team and just focus on the right things for right now. And then as you build your financial acumen and as you build the financial intelligence of the organization, then you add another report and another strategy that goes with that, right? Then thirdly, and I hear people say all the time, well, if I outsourced this part of my business, what would I do with Mark and Sarah and so forth? You know what they would do? Maybe they'd be implementing this stuff. There's a lot to do and get going, and a bunch of papers landing on your desk really aren't going to fix your business. You need people that are going to drive action and accountability with your team and coach and educate and so forth. Now, it's quite likely you need less people, but someone's got to be doing this work, especially in the first 90 to 120 days to make this transition to say, all right, let's adapt to the market and set new goals and targets and assign accountability to every single member of my team and make sure they know what they need to do to close the gap. And then you're underway, right? It sounds like a lot, but it's what people are doing pretty quickly to pivot and drive forward.
Yeah. Hey, Sean, I'm skipping one question and going just because of where you left off. Having all employee buy-in with personal responsibility and accountability is such a great idea, right? And that is critical, right? Sean and I both believe in, setting goals and targets and then assigning those to people. And why most people don't want to be held responsible or accountable is because they don't have reports that show them their performance, right? In our business, most of the time, we don't want to share our performance with our team, right? And it's just foolish because you can't hold them responsible or accountable, right? When you start giving them insight to the team performance and their individual performance, that's where accountability comes into play. So, I think every person wants to be, at the end of the day, being held accountable and being, shown your performance, right, is so important for every member of the team.
Yeah. It is a great question, Tracy. So a few things. Number one, I think that looking at the unique challenge that we have in front of us here, is an opportunity to gather your team together and just face that and say, hey, here's a challenge. Here's what we need to do about it. And, when I opened up my first restaurant, I was the oldest guy on the team at 27. And we're going to run a multi-million-dollar property in downtown Sydney, Australia. And a friend of mine was involved, helped us put my board together, and bought these blank books. And we bought a book for each member of the management team. And I said, no one thinks we're going to succeed, right? We're too young. We're all like this ragtag group. I don't know how many university degrees amongst us, but not many. And I said, I don't think so. I think we're going to crush it. And I'd love for us to fill out this book one day and write a book and write our story that we'd be proud of to share with our kids down the track and other people in the industry. That's what's possible with a team that believes that you can accomplish greatness. Now, the only reason they believe that is because we had it pretty well framed out with what that looks like and what the steps were to getting there. I think as far as the bonus question, in running restaurants, I said, my restaurants, here's what it takes for the restaurant to be successful and break even. As the owner and majority shareholder, I was driving that business for a 15% net profit. And then everything after that became a bonus pool that I was sharing with the team. But, I had to take the risk of the business and put money up and all of that. I certainly wanted to make sure that the asset was going to yield money back to me in the event that we were successful. And I think the last thing I'll say on that is there's something really valuable in making this transition and as a leader of the business, providing an opportunity to do this and an education along the way. Because, I think if I were a 30-year-old manager and I was going to be able to take the reins of the business with the rest of my team and navigate this through this storm, there's real value in that for when I want to have my own place or be the GM of another place down the road. Getting this experience, I think, is going to be really valuable if we do it right. If we motivate the team to take the steps that we need to be successful.
Yeah, in leadership, Sean, a great leader has vision of the future, shares that with their team, and then has a plan to get there, right? So I think inspiring people from, where, people are uninspired right now in the industry, businesses are slow, they aren't making enough money, they aren't getting enough hours, right? You have to show that there's a plan. You have to show there's a vision, right? And if you sit down with them and show them your vision, show them a detailed plan of both guest experience, cocktail quality, food, and guest experience, and then you roll into a financial plan for the next 12 months of how you're going to succeed, how you're going to beat out the competition, right? That is what people get inspired by. That's what people rally behind, is leaders that can do that and do it well.
Yeah, we've only got a minute left here, and I think we're kind of answering the last question I see in front of me here about how do I keep my team inspired. And in any business, any team, you only have to have one person that's really got their head up and flowing that energy to the rest of the team. And it's setting that expectation too, where if your business is struggling right now and it's down, well, it's obvious why, right? Everyone's in a very similar position. However, I keep reminding the team that you don't need the economy to come around to have a successful business. You don't even need your city to come around, right? You only need a certain number of people to come in your store, spend their money, leave incredibly happy, and bring their friends back next time, right? The game is still the game. Yeah, it's harder now, but you got to be better. Who was it? Brian Tracy Jim Rohn, who used to say, don't ask for it to be easier, ask to be better. Right? We got to be better at being retailers and hospitality providers. And if we do that, I think we're all going to do well. We mentioned some follow-up info for those that wanted it. Do they have your email from the...
They should, but it's...
So Hollis's email is Hollis, HOLLIS, at 59franklin.com. And she will get anybody, anything they want. We've got some follow-up videos. We've got these reporting packs. We've got some of the assets that we talked about in the webinar as well. Any final words, Bob?
I just hope this talk has been helpful. If you need any guidance, one person talked about earlier on just how they could learn more about accounting and finance, right? Be a reader. Read every book you can get. about how to run successful restaurants, and really just get the experts, the consultants, the people in maybe friends in the industry that do it really well. Just rely on them. Get a peer-to-peer group. Get a leadership group that you're in, right? Don't try to do it by yourself. This is a tough business, and, doing it in a group of people who are in the same boat as you is super powerful.
Yep. All right. Well, that's all we've got time for, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We're back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, we think. You can check the Tails guide, but Bob and I in the 301 segment, which talks about some of the things we alluded to today about the planning aspects of your business, setting budgets, KPIs, like the whole deal tomorrow. Another kind of cool webinar, and that one's live. So there's no pre-recording of it. We're going to see how Bob does live with the technology. That'd be really exciting.
I'll have a better environment around me too. No.
He might be coming to us from a gizmo. The kids have on their wrist. It just says Bob on the gizmo. That'd be awesome, Bob.
All right, see you guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody.